Good afternoon, guys. This is Eric LeClaire over at Push Press, and we are continuing our In the Trenches series. And for those of you that have been following along, what you have seen is a handful of both coaches and affiliate owners, and for some, a blast from the past. If you've been in CrossFit only the last 2 or 3 years, you may not recognize some of the names, but if you've been hanging on for as long as we have, it probably would bring a smile to your face to see some of the owners and coaches that we've brought along with us. And to continue that, an old friend, someone who we started together with in this space, I'm going to assume it was about 15 years ago or so, was Michael Rutherford. And I was laughing this morning thinking to myself, we were 2 of the first boot camps and outdoor kind of facilities that saw or was drug into the CrossFit world. And I was super excited because I was like, man, this guy's doing something similar to me. And we found CrossFit, and let's kind of see where this goes. And I'm guessing that was maybe 2002 to 2004, somewhere around there. But Michael, for those of you guys that may only know you as Rut or might know you as, Coach Rut, introduce yourself.
Well, appreciate being here, Eric. And gosh, that was a long time ago. So be a little bit foggy probably in a couple of years there. But I was running a boot camp. It kind of happened organically. I had some one-on-one training I was doing at a club. I had more than one person that was interested in occupying my time early in the morning. And, you kind of hate to say no to anybody in that situation. I was aware of some boot camps, even though I have military shame. I was never in the military. But I kind of understood the gist of what was going on. I knew some guys that were doing, some boot camp programs on the East Coast, and I explored that a little bit, check out, see if there was a franchising opportunity. And he wasn't there yet. And I was like, wait a minute, I get this already. We'll call it boot camp, for lack of a better name. And we were off. It was a low overhead way for me to get started with a group coaching situation. And then I read an online article that Dan John had posted. And I think it was, and you're going to correct me real fast here, this is a CrossFit Sin. It was Fitness in 100 Words.
Right.
Is that one of the really early CrossFit newsletters? And I thought, this has kind of got a good jam going on. I want to check it out. I picked up the phone after going to the CrossFit website because I tried to order the journal, the CrossFit Journal, which was delivered by email as a PDF.
A PDF every month.
Yeah, and it bounced out. I couldn't go through, so I'm like, what the heck? So I'm going to just make a phone call. And I called the phone number, and there was actually a real voice on the end of the line, and it was Lauren. And she goes, yeah, that thing doesn't break. We'll get it out to you. Don't worry. And you could hear somebody in the background.
Probably yelling.
Yeah, they were. They were like moaning and groaning. And I was like, what are you doing to people there? That just sounds incredible. She goes, yeah, it's some kind of clean and jerk with your body weight today. And that was sort of the initial start, Greg literally called me on a landline phone because he had a phone number or looked me up or something like that. And he goes, hey, I saw your website, your Boot Camp Fitness website. I think we have some things in common. I want you to come out here. And I don't know how many months it took me, but it was probably would have been considered like the first cert. And there was some law enforcement guys from Florida that were there. There was a couple from Washington State. I mean, there was it was a handful of us. It was literally like just a download weekend of what CrossFit was all about.
Right.
And that was it. That was the launch of it and how I got interested in it. And I wanted to keep CrossFit one thing and my boot camp one thing. I eventually like kind of morphed them together collectively. But that was the start.
I love it. So would you say that was roughly 2004 2004, 2000, maybe 5, or was that?
It might have been. It might have been. My boot camp was before that, but so I think that's essentially yeah.
On that time
when that was getting going.
So I mean, there's so many affiliate owners that came on board in this last 3 years. They never grew up in that, and I say that because we'd spent a ton of weekends in Santa Cruz, driving north, hanging out, spending a Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, or just a Saturday, Sunday up there. That's no more. And that friend to friend, coach to coach learning experience is no more. It's fast forward. It's business, and it's cutthroat, and it's competitive, and it's wild. Absolutely. Yeah. So what kept you motivated in the early years? I mean, we're talking well before the games, right? Because we know there was a huge split of like the brand that it was, and then all of a sudden the emergence of this thing that might look like a sport or not, whatever. What kept you motivated? What kept you going early?
It was renegade. It was new. It didn't really have any rule book. It was raw. I mean, some of those people that I met in those early years, I mean, they're still people I communicate with today.
Right.
They were smart. They were looking to be a change agent. They had experience. If they didn't have experience, they were damn smart.
Right. And they went and adjusted and connected with the right people, right? Yeah.
And the thing that was really unique is that I came from a more formal background. I was a collegiate strength coach. I went to graduate school. I have a master's degree in exercise physiology. This was a path that I followed was, get your undergraduate degree, go to graduate school. I wanted to be a strength coach. I was a strength coach as an assistant. And then I was a full-time strength coach. Then I went into corporate fitness for a hospital. And then I was like, I got to do something where it's not so formal. So I tried the personal training world somewhat successfully. Always had to have a little bit of a side hustle for a while. And then I didn't really get any traction until about 2000 when I started my group workout. I had no business background. I was just terrible at business.
Right. Like many.
So later on, after getting the CrossFit thing rolling, in addition to my boot camp, in addition to some personal training, I actually looked for other people. And oddly enough, there were some people that became CrossFit affiliates that had some of the same challenges. And so I found a group that was trying to put together the best practices to run a business. And ultimately, I wanted to get it down so that it was a well-oiled machine. I was driven by the idea that if you had better systems and you had better coaches, then you'd have a better business and you would be successful. That was sort of the logic that I used on it. But I was always wanted to be the best in my market. That's what drove me. I wanted to be a good representative of what CrossFit was doing, so that people didn't get hurt; they got good results.
Of course, no, of course. So from those days of being in the trenches of strength and conditioning, let's say at the collegiate level, and then transitioning away from that now into your own model / brand, but still kind of attached to the CrossFit brand, were there any distilled principles or any did you have mentors in that space that you looked up to that you were like, man, that's a coach, that's a leader, he or she is someone that I can thoroughly see cares about people? Did you pull any of those leadership principles or values and help create your own, or did you fully run of your own accord to build your own principles?
Well, I think naturally, the philosophies that you build, the leadership skills that you learn, it's sort of like a quilt. It's all the people that you work for.
And you kind of patch and weave it as you go.
Yeah. I mean, I couldn't really say that you take this piece from that guy and this piece from that guy. And if you get a chance to hang out with people you get their philosophy or what they believe is a guiding principle to what they're doing. Like I said, I didn't have the business background, even working for a hospital. I mean, they wanted me to, when I ran their facility, they wanted me to manage their budget, which was basically, checkbook accounting.
Right.
And so that was good, but at the same time, it was like, this is a hospital that makes $30 million a year. And we're just this little sort of marketing piece, this little trophy for them over here that has high-tech fitness, and good trainers, other physiologists that are there. But I wouldn't say there was just one thing. I took pieces from different individuals. I don't think it would have been healthy for me just to latch on to one approach.
Right.
This is a combination of things. The one thing that I'll say that was really interesting about my relationship with Greg was how he believed in me even without really knowing me that well. Like, he was very giving, very giving, very supportive, and it was sort of like he gave me permission to do things I didn't want to do.
Right.
And I did do that. In terms of like additional production things, I became really known as the dumbbell guy. And now I see it all over the Instagram. I see it all over Facebook. I see it all over Twitter. People with dumbbells as part of what they're doing. I'd like to think that somehow I had an influence on how that was going, how that continued to go and grow as being part of what people are using.
I think that's a characteristic of Greg that not many people today know or even get a chance to ever develop because of where he is in the structure of the company and just what the brand is today. You're right. Back then there was a phone that you could call and you could talk to Lauren, or you could talk to Greg, or you could go there and you can hang out and you can face to face and you can consult and ask questions and like ponder and like come up with ideas to create dialogue back and forth. That's not the CrossFit of today.
No, it's not. And I don't even know for sure what that looks like.
Right. Right. I mean, so many of us like you and you might represent a lot of affiliate owners that have parted ways here. I mean, we'll absolutely discuss that, here in the future, because we just did that. I mean, in this last year, we just retired and are preparing to move to a different state. From the relationships that you've created, or any of the relationships that you have created, who have you been most happy with meeting and getting to know? Who are some of the coaches or the leaders today that you're like, man, I am so glad they're my friend. I can call on them when I need them, and I've really enjoyed their personality. Anybody that you still click with real well?
Yeah, I mean, there's a number of people. I'm the old man in the in the CrossFit family tree. I've been around. I've seen a lot. I've seen a lot of people grow and develop. I would say probably a couple of my favorites were Rob and Nikki Wolf.
Yep.
I met them very early, and maybe the second time I was ever out there. They were trying to find their way with a gym, basically. Right. And I remember it would have been about maybe 2006. They were very frustrated, and I remember having a call. I remember sitting in my truck and talking on the phone to them because they were about ready to hang it up. Rob was a celiac. My youngest son was a celiac, so I had a number of questions for Rob. We spent time together. He has evolved.
Correct.
From being gym owner to author to being influencer in that space. I think that's a big story for me. Probably the guy that has impressed me the most was somebody that worked for them, Greg Everett. I mean,
yep.
an incredibly talented guy that was basically just this super gazelle athletic individual. When I would go to those early certifications in different cities, and Greg and Lauren were driving, they'd get on the road and drive halfway across the United States to do one of the certs. And if I was fortunate enough to be invited out and help with that, I would do a dumbbell presentation, and Greg could do it. I mean, he could do just almost any of those things. But he taught himself. He like did the total immersion thing and went and stayed with one of the nation's best Olympic lifting coaches, Mike Berger. Total immersion, just got in there and did it. I mean, he's just immensely talented. He's evolved what he does as well too. And then, there's different people that, became really good friends of mine. It's truly, I don't have the most outgoing personality in the world. So, if I latch on to you, that means I'm going to choke you out because I don't want you to leave.
I love it. I'm so impressed. I can't believe Greg is competing in the tactical games now as a competitive shooter. And I love it. I've been following that journey for a long time and watching him trudge into that direction.
Yeah. I mean, he was clear. I watched him do things in those certifications, with a bar and, with pull-ups or rings or things like that. And then he massed out a little bit and had a successful weightlifting career. And now he's doing that. And I kind of just found out by accident that he was doing that. And I was like, what's this? So what are you doing? I hit him up. I'm like, what's this all about?
Yeah, I love it. I just love seeing people grow and who they or what they evolve either themselves or their brand into. It's impressive. There's such a wealth of knowledge in there. For it to go away completely would be sad, but to see it continue to evolve, I think is impressive.
Yeah.
So today you're not running operations full time, and we're faced with this. We're faced with the pandemic where we see 100% of fitness operations shut down, from the micro side all the way to the massive full scale, 18,000 member facilities shut down. You saw it coming. You understood the change. You knew that gyms had to pivot. What were your reflections and your thoughts on what you would personally do for what your brand looks like today?
Yeah. I've kind of gone back and forth on how I feel this is gonna wash out for it. I feel like it's gonna be in thirds. I think a third of the people are gonna need to have that personal touch. That there's not, every trainee can't just look at it and make it stick. They need to go see somebody. They need that interaction. They need that coaching. They need that discipline. I feel like a third of the people aren't going to be able to afford it, because no matter how you slice it, there's going to be a lot of people that are displaced, a lot of displaced workers. And then I feel like a third are going to say, gee, I was lucky. I got a Concept 2 rower and a skier and a bike in my garage now because I got there early enough. I got a barbell. And they're going to just do it at home. Those people could also need your assistance as a team, but more in a setting like you and I are having right here. I'm helping people with home gyms all of a sudden. That's a brand new thing. And something I didn't really even consider, but I've purchased a lot of equipment over the years, and I know how some things are superior to others. So that's a thing too. So I think those are sort of the thirds that I see it breaking down into in terms of the brick and mortar. When I was growing my business, I didn't have to contend with ClassPass. I didn't have to contend with Peloton. Or what's the thing where you stand in, it's called Mirror, I think.
Sure.
Even.
Yeah.
Those were, when I started, Concept 2 had a rower. And even though I've been in hospital wellness and I've been rowing on Concept 2 rowing machines since the middle 80s.
The old wooden handles and yep.
Yeah. I mean, it was like a bicycle wheel, and
Yep.
it didn't have a cover on the chain. And if you had a cat or a little kid who stuck his finger in the chain, it was, yeah.
Yep.
It was, but now, I see a real emergence with this whole like working out at home again. I've always made fun of the idea that most people who buy a treadmill just use them to hang their clothes on.
Yep.
And you know, my girlfriend, my partner, she loves the social exercise. So she's always gonna want that. I personally don't need that. You know, I don't really need somebody to cheer for me and tell me how good my squats look or my pull-ups look. I mean, I just don't need that. But there are people that do. And so I'm kind of putting everything at this point into those kind of categories. That's how it's going to come out. I think the model is out there for the right gym that went into this with sound fundamentals or was working on some sound fundamentals, had a little bit of money in the bank, didn't have a lot of overhead, didn't want to be all things to all people. I never wanted to go down the path where I was chasing numbers, like chasing like the price down, trying to get more people in the door. I didn't want to go that way because I was familiar with how that looks.
Right, and where it ended up.
Yeah, I was actually always trying to figure out how can I charge these guys $1,000 a month.
And go the other way. Yep.
You know, maybe I only have like 20 of them, but maybe I can do things like pick up their dry cleaning and things like that. So I always wanted to go the other way with it. You know, I know a few people that are struggling, and I hurt for them. I know a really aggressive young guy with a barbell emphasis gym. He's already moved. He was gonna move. He just took this time and just moved his whole gym. He's ready to open in the state of Missouri. I think Kansas City, Missouri is going to open the 15th. He knows what the rules are. He's been extremely positive. He's been aggressive in a tactful way. I know of a gym that just closed too. I don't really know for sure in this market how many people are healthy, and I don't think we'll know for sure until it's all said and done.
I mean, and to that point, I mean, that's normally where folks that have been around long enough can provide some insight, or at least provide some focus for those that are younger. And so I'll always ask our guests, what words of wisdom, or maybe if you can think the audience that you're speaking to, struggling gym owners, the struggling coaches, any pearls of wisdom, anything you'd want to share as far as,
usually I think the best lessons are the ones where you had to taste the failure of where.
Yep.
I think right now, if somebody's struggling, that they need to reach out. They need to find somebody to help mentor them or put some guardrails up. They don't necessarily even have to be from this industry.
Right.
But I think it's important that they don't just go into a hole and watch their bank account dry up. They need some help. I think that's important to ask for it. And that could also play into the second piece, which is, don't let your ego be your enemy. That's a real easy thing to do. Think that you already have all the answers, and maybe you don't. And right. That's where you can get into trouble with it. Always try to learn to better yourself.
Right.
Like I said, I didn't have enough business experience really. I wasted a lot of money. I wasted a lot of time, resources, mostly. And just it'd be tough. Be relentless.
Right on.
Everybody is going to be touched by this in a large scale to a small scale. It's dominoes, and everybody's going to be impacted by this in some way. And being relentless, being resilient, having some grit, because we're going to be dealing with this for a while.
Yeah.
Depends on who you believe.
Even if, like you said, even if the Kansas City area is allowed to open on May 15, what May 15 looks like relative to June, July, August, September, this is going to take a while for not only business to return to some semblance of normalcy, but for the client to feel comfortable, right? Maybe walk in or utilizing a portion of service. Agreed. Yeah, totally agree. Awesome. Well, in the last seconds, is there anything that you want to share? How can folks find you if they want to connect, if they want to read things that you've written before, if they want to, follow up with anything? How can they find you?
So if you want to look at the old stuff, it's most of all the CrossFit stuff that I put out there is free. If you just do Coach Rut in the CrossFit Journal, I think they have almost all of that's free. I don't even know what is in the CrossFit Journal anymore.
Yeah, I don't know that will bring it up.
It's behind a wall. I did a bunch of stuff there. In the early days, Rob and Greg and Nikki and Amy all were running something called the Performance Menu.
Yep.
And in the Performance Menu, I have a number of articles in there. I just did a new one for them based on a program I did to do a rim to rim to rim of the Grand Canyon.
Awesome.
But I had this early belief that the barbells were lacking in most CrossFit metabolic conditioning workouts. And so I found a way to layer in some dedicated strength work, and it was called the Max Effort Black Box. Yep. I also have an ebook that's on the Breaking Muscle website that has that. But those two places to find out what I did. If you want to find me, I have a website, coachrut.com. I also am on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram. And
Excellent. Right on.
Usually it's rubbish, but there'll be something. There might be a pearl in there for you somewhere.
Trust me, all of my coaches at our facility know who you are, read your articles, have subscribed to Max Effort Work. I mean, go back in the day and you look at Max Effort Black Box and you look at how many variations of programming that has created for gyms. You've probably touched thousands of gyms, easily thousands of gyms. So I'm very humbled to have you on today. So I'm very happy. Thank you. I really, really appreciate today.
Appreciate being here. Good luck on your journey to Tennessee.